right, here's an example of a deontological argument based on the Aziz Ansari scenario. Now, I'm going to try to do something a little bit tricky here, just so you can see there are different ways to argue and different perspectives to take. In Alex's video, he's going to use a prima facie duty analysis to argue that Aziz Ansari has done something that is morally wrong. But what I'm going to do is try to use deontology here to argue that grace has done something wrong. You can decide how effective you think it is. Now, you've already read my argument. Let me point out a few things that I do in this opening paragraph. I understand if I'm going to make this argument in 2020, in the age right after the Me Too movement, after we have been very aware of all sorts of instances of sexual aggression of men towards women, it's very difficult to make an argument saying that Grace herself did something wrong. So for me to make this work, I'm going to have to make a lot of concessions. Then I'm going to have to get to the heart of my matter. So notice that's what I'm doing in my opening paragraph, is I'm giving myself a little credibility with the reader so they don't just think I'm this ogre that thinks that women are always just complaining about men, right? So here we go. Notice I lead off by giving a little background about the situation, but then here's where I establish some credibility. Much has been written about Ansari's neglect of his duty to ensure consent during the escalating intimate encounters, which I agree with entirely. Consent must be openly sought at multiple stages as things progress. As a celebrity, Ansari should have been especially aware of the unequal power dynamics inherent given his fame and gender. So I'm putting that out there, right? However, now I'm going to focus in on the issue of this argument. Many have noted the fact that Grace neglected to directly communicate her discomfort and that she continued to engage sexually with him without ending the date and leaving. Here's my thesis, just as Ansari violated fundamental dating rules, so did Grace. And I'm going to highlight this so you can really see this. Now notice I'm already indicating that this is going to be a deontological argument, because notice I'm talking about fundamental rules. That's what deontologists care about, is what are the rules, and let's make sure we follow them. Now I focus in the reader on a specific instance. For example, let's examine the early moments when things got intimate. When Ansari told her he was going to grab a condom within minutes of their first kiss, Grace voiced her hesitation explicitly. I said something like, "Whoa, let's relax for a sec. Let's chill." She then says he resumed kissing her briefly, performed oral sex on her, and asked her to do the same thing to him. She did, but not for long. Now here comes my deontological analysis. Clearly, by simply stating he was going to get a condom, he violated a fundamental rule of sexual intimacy, which is to obtain direct consent from partners. Notice when you're going to do a deontological analysis, you must state the rule. Do not assume it's obvious to your reader. State it. I continue on. He assumes they will have sex without making sure she wants to. But then, notice he did respect her stated boundary not to take things that far yet. He did not go and get a condom. He went back to kissing her, thus following the rule. Now notice I'm invoking another rule. One must always honor the stated boundaries of your partner. Again, I'm referring to rules. I'm not talking about duties. I'm not talking about consequences. I'm putting out there for you what I think the rules of dating are. Now let's continue. However, another fundamental rule is that you must make your boundaries clear and stick to them. This can never be compromised, or it leads to, well, what happened here? So now I'm going to illustrate that she's violated this rule. Why did she let Ansari go down on her? Why did she go down on him? If you're not comfortable with a sexual act, don't do it. It's sort of restating my rule in a different way. Notice again, I'm showing you how firmly I believe in this. This rule should never be broken, even if it's embarrassing, even if it will make your date end awkwardly. This rule not only protects yourself from being violated, but your partner from being unaware of the violation. Now, this is probably the beginning of what would be a 4, 5, 6-page essay. And of course, to make this argument work, we have to also talk about our awareness about sexual violence. We have to talk about, yes, there are certainly many cases where women don't have the freedom to not do something they're not comfortable with. And then, of course, we'd have to illustrate that that's not the situation here. It's a very tricky thing to do. Probably as a cisgen hetero woman, I'm one of the few people who can get away with this. But nevertheless, here's an example of a deontological argument about Aziz Ansari. Take note.